Hello, my name is Rachel Buell, and I'm a Robert Noyce Scholar from Penn State Bear, and I'm currently a senior there. And I've done multiple field placements. I've done an early field placement and a middle field placement. And I want to talk to you about how the 8 effective teaching practices math can be implemented in your classroom. And so the 8 effective teaching practices for mathematics are establish mathematic goals to focus learning, implement tasks that promote reasoning and problem solving, use and connect mathematical representations, facilitate meaningful mathematical discourse, pose purposeful questions, build procedural fluency from conceptual understanding, support productive struggle in learning mathematics, elicit and use evidence of student thinking. And so in my field placement, I taught a lesson on exponent rules, and I used and connect mathematical representations. So, for example, if you have an exponent that is in the denominator of a fraction, you could also write that as an exponent, a variable to a negative exponent. And so that is one thing that I use to show students that exponent rules can be taught in several different ways. And this would also allow students have different answers, which then can also facilitate mathematical discourse because students will be like, I solved that a different way if they were working in groups. And another way that I have implemented this in the lesson is to implement a task to promote reasoning and problem solving. And so I'm going to show you one of the activities I had them do, which was to create your own exponent. So this is my create your own exponent activity. So the students were asked to um, simplify their own exponent, and when they were creating their exponents, they need to incorporate either the product of powers, quotient of powers, negative exponent, and properties of powers, and they were required to use 2 of these. And so then the activity would have them write their example, and then they had to solve their own example, which would allow students to work backwards also. And so then, once the students had their own and they solved their own, they would walk around and find classmates. So they need to find one classmate example and solve that classmate's. And then that classmate, if they did it wrong, the classmate is responsible for checking and making sure that they help, which also is how you facilitate mathematical discourse. And so the last thing is a bonus challenge that the students were asked to do. And so this would show them that they could express this several different ways. This could be simplified, different routes in which you could simplify this. And so this would also allow the students to think backwards. So they are given the expanded form and then they have to reduce it, but they could also, given the reduced form, expand it however they would like. They could add wherever they want. I'll show you my lesson plan in which I taught this lesson. And so to introduce this lesson, I allowed the students to have whiteboards, and they started by going over what they knew about exponents. They had 2 minutes to brainstorm, power dump on what the whiteboard, what they knew about exponents, and then I used that to see what the students remembered. And then depending on what they said, I said what happens when we have a number or a variable to a negative exponent to see if they knew the negative rule. And then what happens when we multiply exponents with the same base to see if they knew that we had to add the exponents. And then this was use of purposeful questions to gauge the students' knowledge and then to have the students think longer about certain ideas. Lastly, along with this exponent rule lesson, I had to engage my students because many of them didn't think that they could do some of the math. Some of them were like, I don't know if I can do this. And starting the lesson by asking them what they knew helped them to use what they actually did know and then build on that. So they felt really confident walking into the lesson, and then they were really engaged because they would get to use whiteboards throughout the whole lesson with what they knew. Lastly, I use some of my ideas from my mathematical mindsets book to engage the students to want to learn the math and to make them not to have a growth mindset that they could learn. And that was all that I did to implement different teaching practices into my lesson on exponent rules. Thank you.